Gen Z didn't ban alcohol. They did something far more dangerous. They made it optional. For almost a century, the alcohol industry has run on one invisible assumption. Every new generation eventually joins the ritual. Maybe they start with cheap beer, graduate to cocktails, then mature into wine. The brands change, the flavors change, the packaging gets sleeker, but the habit stays. And now that habit is snapping. In the United States, this isn't just a vibe. It's in the numbers. One of America's longest-running youth studies shows lifetime beer use among 12th graders fell from 82% in 1991 to 42% in 2023. That's not a decline. That's a collapse. The CDC says underage alcohol use and binge drinking have generally decreased over the long term, and as of recent reporting, 9% of high school students said they binge drank in the past month. So by the time Gen Z reaches legal drinking age, a huge portion of them are arriving without the muscle memory older generations built as teens. They're not cutting back. Many of them never built the default in the first place. And that's why bars feel different. That's why beer brands are launching products that would have sounded like a joke 10 years ago. That's why the fastest growing alcohol trend is alcohol without alcohol. So what happened? Did Gen Z suddenly become the designated driver generation? Or did the world change so hard that drinking stopped making sense? Because this isn't one reason. It's 6 reasons stacked on top of each other like weights on a barbell. And at a certain point, the old system just fails. First, alcohol lost its health halo. For years, alcohol got to live in a comfortable gray zone. Drink responsibly, everything in moderation. Red wine is good for the heart. It was marketed like a lifestyle accessory with no real consequence. Then the messaging turned sharp. In 2023, the World Health Organization's Europe office dropped a line that hit like a warning siren. No level of alcohol consumption is safe for our health, and risk starts from the first drop. Gen Z is the first generation to grow up with health reality on tap. Sleep trackers, heart rate data, nutrition breakdowns, mental health discourse, viral explainers about what alcohol does to your brain and your body. They don't just hear alcohol is bad, they see it quantified. And when something becomes measurable, it stops being a vibe and becomes a decision. Second, the hangover got upgraded. Older generations feared hangovers because they were tired. Gen Z fears hangovers because they feel broken. The modern hangover isn't just a headache, it's anxiety, bad sleep, low mood, a weird emotional crash that makes everything feel heavier than it should. And here's the difference. Gen Z already lives with stress, money, career pressure, identity pressure, constant comparison. Alcohol isn't relief anymore. It's a multiplier. So when Gen Z thinks about drinking, they don't just ask, will I feel sick tomorrow? They ask, will I lose my whole weekend? Third, social life became a surveillance state. In the old world, you could have a messy night and it would evaporate into a story. In the new world, your worst 10 seconds becomes content. Everyone has a camera. Everyone has group chats. Everyone has an archive. Gen Z grew up online, building identity in public, and alcohol is chaos. It makes you loud, impulsive, emotional, careless, which is fine until it becomes a clip that follows you. This is the invisible tax on drinking that older generations never had, the risk of permanent embarrassment. So the incentive flips. Staying sharp becomes cool. The person who remembers everything becomes the one in control. Fourth, drinking got expensive at the worst possible time. A night out used to be cheap entertainment, now it's a budget decision. Drinks, food, rideshare, tips, cover charges. By the end of the night, you didn't go out, you made a payment. And Gen Z is entering adulthood in a world where money feels tighter and the future feels less guaranteed. When you're trying to build stability, you cut optional costs that punish you the next day. Alcohol starts looking less like fun and more like a recurring fee. Not because Gen Z is cheap, because Gen Z is selective. They'll spend money, they just want value, not regret. Fifth, Gen Z socializes differently. Alcohol thrives when people gather in the same place, that's its natural habitat. But Gen Z grew up with connection that doesn't require a venue. Group chats, gaming, streaming, online communities. They still socialize constantly, but not always in bars. And the pandemic didn't invent that shift. It accelerated it. It took a generation already drifting away from nightlife and gave them a global reason to do it even more. So the ritual changes. Less, let's go out. More, let's do something. And when the center of social gravity moves from bars to activities, gym, sport, coffee, hikes, side hustles, alcohol loses its default role. Sixth, Gen Z didn't stop drinking. They changed how they drink. This is where the story gets dangerous for mass-market alcohol brands. Gen Z is trading volume for control. Instead of 5 cheap drinks, it's 1 good drink. Instead of getting wasted, it's staying functional. Instead of party all night, it's wake up early and feel good. They didn't kill alcohol. They turned it from a habit into an event. And that breaks the old business model, because beer companies didn't need you to love beer. They needed you to buy it by default, every weekend, every game, every party. If drinking becomes conditional, every bottle has to earn its place. Every time. Now watch what the industry does next, because it reveals what they're most afraid of. They don't just launch new products, they launch new versions of reality. The biggest defensive move is non-alcoholic and low-alcohol drinks, because it lets people keep the ritual without paying the health tax. And this isn't niche anymore. One of the largest beverage alcohol research firms, IWSR, forecasts the US no-alcohol market will be worth close to $5 billion by 2028, with no-alcohol beer as the main volume driver. Across major markets, IWSR also expects no-alcohol to keep driving most of the growth through 2028, adding billions in incremental value. That tells you everything. The industry is building an escape hatch for people who still want to hold something, still want to blend in, still want to feel part of the moment without the cost. No-alcohol products don't save the old drinking culture, they replace it. They keep the behavior alive, just with the ethanol removed. And while this looks like a health win, it's also a brilliant survival strategy. The brand stays in your hand, the ritual stays in your life, and the industry keeps getting paid. But here's the part nobody says out loud. Even as drinking declines among younger people, the alcohol world is still incredibly good at extracting money from fewer drinks. Premium drinks, better packaging, higher margins, more experience. Because if you can't rely on volume, you push value. And if Gen Z is going to drink less often, you make sure that when they do drink, they pay more. So the future isn't an alcohol-free world. It's a world where alcohol becomes something you schedule, something you curate, something you control. And that sounds small until you realize what it does to an entire industry built on default behavior. Because the industry doesn't need some people to drink. It needs the majority to drink without thinking. And Gen Z is the first generation asking a question that alcohol marketing was never designed to answer. Why? Why drink when it ruins sleep? Why drink when it wrecks mental health? Why drink when everyone is filming? Why drink when it costs a fortune? Why drink when you can still be social without it? Why drink when you can have the ritual without the consequences? And once those questions become normal, the game changes. Not overnight, but permanently. So when you hear young people don't drink anymore, don't picture a generation of saints. Picture a generation that turned drinking into a choice. That single shift is the most dangerous thing the alcohol industry has ever faced. Because once a habit becomes optional, it's no longer guaranteed. It has to be earned. If you enjoyed this breakdown and you're into alcohol content, beer, spirits, brands, and the stories behind what we drink, subscribe to Bottle Rank for more.